All right. So yeah, tell me about yourself and your prep and everything.
Yeah. So I started studying for the MCAT maybe about January. Um I studied so I sort of have a rough schedule. Let me pull it up of what I did.
Hmm.
Uh I actually had a labrum surgery in late December. So
Okay.
it sort of threw my schedule in
Uh-huh.
a weird funk. Just took me a while to recover 100%.
Mhm.
Um, so it wasn't too strict until like the last month and a half, maybe.
Uh-huh.
I took my MCAT, I think it was April 13th. Um, Let me just pull this up. Dun, dun, dun. And I'll share it with you. Um, if you'd like, I can send it here. I can just share my screen. It's up to you.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. Um, you see it here?
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I mean it was pretty structured. I didn't really start in December. I started maybe in late January and no, not late January, maybe early January. And typically, yeah, I did content review. I used this program called Chad's Prep. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Um,
Abs prep.
Chad's Prep, yeah, it's like some content videos
Yep.
with practice questions. It's like a light, not super in-depth content review, but I sort of layered it with some Kaplan reading. I have the books here. Um, I did that, then some UWorld, and instead of the Khan Academy doc for psych, I did um, the Miles Down Anki deck.
Okay, when you took your MCAT April 13th, what was your score and the breakdown?
Yeah, I got a 505. It was a 128 in chem physics, 124 in cars, 127 in biochem, and what would the remainder would be, I guess, a 126 in psych soc.
All right, that's good to know. All right. So so I guess it seems like cars is kind of like what you want to address the most.
Yeah, I mean cars was my biggest issue, and I started doing better on it towards the last really 3 weeks, 2 weeks of my studying.
Mhm.
Uh, So I definitely try to use strategies. I noticed a bit of an improvement, but then obviously, I think maybe the testing anxiety must have affected, those 2, 3 weeks of progress
Yeah,
and
which
pushed me.
elective did you take?
I took the AMC, I took three AMC full lengths or four. I got the unscored was a 504. Sorry, a 503. Um I took FL1, it was a 507. FL2 was a 516, which was pretty good. And that's it. I didn't do any more. I don't think it. Yeah.
So it was the sample. It was test one, test two, right?
Yeah. And then I also did some Kaplan ones.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I think the Kaplan one was pretty low, it was a 503. Uh,
Yeah. The Kaplan tests are not that good because they're like they test minutia that isn't very like high yield most of the time. But and also in terms of the books, you're reading the Kaplan books. Um, is that how you like to learn, or are you more of like a video guy?
yeah, I like videos. I think really like the one thing I can tag back to that I did learn quite well with was like AK lectures. I used them quite a bit for like biochemistry and orgochem.
Uh,
Uh, and that was, I got an A in those classes just with those videos
yeah,
and like some light note reviews. So maybe that's why I like Chad's prep because it was mostly videos in that style.
got it.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I think at least personally, I'm biased obviously, but I felt that my content review was pretty strong. I did some Anki flashcards. I looked through like the Khan Academy sample docs, and I felt pretty strong on most of the content areas. Um, so yeah, I think realistically, I'd like to improve in cars, and then I'll do some of my own studying in biochem and chem phys to improve.
Yeah, so your test was July 13th, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, have you done any like third party full length like Altius or Blueprint? Okay.
I think I
Yeah.
did a blueprint very early on, the half length,
Yeah.
but that was last, that was in fall, so not very indicating of much.
Hmm. Okay. So let's see. Um, for the AMC material, um, there's Cars Question Pack 1 and 2 and Diagnostic Tool. Have you
Yeah.
have you done those?
I have. I just started doing the cars diagnostic tool actually. The first one's 10 questions. So
Mhm.
I finished that. I'm on to the second one now.
Yeah.
Uh and I think I did do both Q packs
Oh, you did
uh
them?
towards the end. I think I was rushing it quite a bit because I was low on time. So I was trying to fit a bunch of questions in. It was hard really to review in depth and like get a good strategy in.
Yeah.
So I would definitely have to redo those with more time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, but you're saying that the diagnostic tool is the one you haven't done before, right?
Yeah, I didn't finish the second part. I had done the first little bits, but I moved quickly onto the Q packs.
Okay. Have you ever done like the Jack Weston cars stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. It's like
Okay.
some passages. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I'm thinking of like what resources we could use. Um, so I usually do like a three-phase thing for students where like the first phase is like the accuracy phase where you're just learning the material and you know doing Anki and like doing cars passages and stuff. But uh considering the well, your science scores of 128, 127, 126, how do you feel about those? Um do you feel like it would be because like obviously like we're gonna focus on cars, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to think like how much focus should be put into the sciences? How do you feel about that?
I mean, definitely important to bring those up as best as I can.
Yeah,
Um,
I should have asked like for those sciences, what would you say is limiting you? Would it be content stuff or like passage comprehension or something like
yeah,
that?
I think maybe just overall the biggest issue may be like um yeah, like critical skills, right? Like being able to take the what the passage is telling you and applying it
Mhm.
to yeah, more passage based questions. I mean, I feel like there's always content gaps that I can improve on.
Yeah,
Uh, but overall, definitely like being faster with answering questions, seeing patterns and
yeah.
things.
Okay. So did you have so I released a video like about where I went over a cars passage with a student recently. Did you happen to see that?
I watched maybe 20 minutes of it. I think it was the most recent one that you put out, right?
Yeah, it's like the third to most recent or the second to more recent. But um but if you want, we can just like dive in and do a cars passage. Is that
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
yeah. Because usually I talk about like the entire like phased system and stuff like that and making like a spreadsheet for you. So I guess I'll just say that really quick or well, let me show it to you really quickly. So sec. Do you play sports?
I right now not really because I'm still injured, but I trained jujitsu for a couple
Oh,
years.
really?
Yeah,
I used to do that in high school, not high school, in college. There was like a
nice,
Brazilian jiu-jitsu class. Uh,
nice.
but I'm trying to do you know what sambo is?
Yeah, like Russian wrestling.
Yep, yep. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's there's like striking as well
Yeah,
and
it's like combat sambo and
yeah, 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 yeah.
nice.
That's pretty cool. Is that how you like broke your
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I played water polo in high school,
uh-huh.
so my labrum was already like pretty bad. and I went for a throw. We were doing like judo stuff, and I had a subluxation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it did. I just kept doing things, and it
Mhm.
would pop out very lightly, and it was
Yeah.
bothering me, so I had to get it fixed.
Yeah. 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 Damn.
Yeah,
Uh,
not fun, but I had a good surgeon, and it's a lot better now, so I'm pretty pleased.
that's awesome. Yeah. Super cool. Um,
Um,
yeah. Okay. So, oh yeah. So can you see what I'm sharing?
yeah, I see. So there's the
So I'm
stuff.
basically going to make something like this for you. It's like a regular calendar, spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And the first phase you would see is, well, Anki will be like every day.
Mhm.
And it doesn't really matter how many cards you get through a day because a lot of students tell me like, you know, I'm like 500 cards behind in Anki and stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't really matter. I know I don't expect anyone to complete an Anki deck. It's
Mhm.
just something that you do every day, or, as much as you like as you can, spreading it out.
Yeah.
So it gets incorporated in your long-term memory. So that's the Anki stuff. And for miles down, I usually recommend, because like Anki is like the best way to memorize things. So the sections that are the most content dependent would make sense to use Anki for. So that's like behavioral sciences, biochem, particularly like the metabolic pathways and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would put that down for like, so like what I have here, like phase one, Anki, Jack Weston content diagnostic, AMC cars, and it'll be pretty much that. I think I may have asked you this before, but the section bank of the AMC,
Mhm.
not the Q packs, but the section bank. Have you done that one
Yeah,
before?
I did those, you know.
Okay, okay. So do you have UWorld?
Yeah, actually, I had to ask them for an exemption because it had expired,
Yeah.
and I begged. I said, please, I really need it,
Yeah.
and they actually granted me an extension, so I got it.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm trying to think of like what material to use, and you've used a lot of the material already. So, um, let's see. So, okay, I would say to start off with the Jack Weston content diagnostic, just to make sure that we don't have any content gaps. So basically, what you'll do is you'll go to the Jack Weston website, and you'll just scroll down to where it says the Q bank. Select that. And then here you see MCAT content diagnostic. You select that. There's three of them. There's BB, CP, Psych, Soc. These are not passage based. They're just straight up discrete questions, um, with the purpose of figuring out what topic areas you need to work on.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, to do that first. And after you do it, and after you review it, and we review it together, and iron out all of the conceptual stuff. Um, that's when I usually have students do the AMC section bank. But for you, since you've done it, I would have you just do UWorld stuff.
Okay.
Um, now, I would probably say to do, well, not probably, but I would say to do the, like, based on the type of stuff that you get wrong or that you feel weak in after you do your content diagnostic,
Yep.
like let's say it's like electromagnetism or something, then you learn about it, we go over it together and stuff, and you can use UWorld and have it generate passages and stuff on that topic.
Perfect.
So that's what you can do. So
Mhm.
um and for each of these, whatever you do, like on that given day, if you did it, you just put a strike through.
Okay.
If you did something else, like let's say, I don't know, like watched or read chapter, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Same thing. You just add it in and then you put a strike through.
Mhm.
And oh, and then I'm also going to share like a really big Google Drive with you with a lot of really good resources. And I think that's it. So yeah, I'm going to make one of these for you, and we're
Great.
going to go backwards from, oh, so this person's test is around when yours is. So
It
so
may even be that weekend because I don't know if they offer. a Monday test.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'll make sure with the student, but it's still around the time where you take it. So I wouldn't have to change much except so like I'll leave this Jack Weston content diagnostic and then for the section bank replace that with UWorld and then some of these blueprint or Altius tests.
Okay, yeah.
And so basically since you have test 3, 4, those are the ones you have
Mhm.
that you haven't done before, right?
And the scored, right? Five.
Oh, I get yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, so what I will do, or I could even do this now. So what yeah, so basically I'm just gonna put this stuff in for here, except after the content diagnostic, you'll just be doing UWorld.
And how long the content diagnostic was like 120 questions each?
Yeah, yeah. It shouldn't really take you that long to do
Yeah.
that. They're not passage based or anything. But yeah, so basically I'll have this set up for you where from the test date here, a week before that will be the last practice test you take,
Okay.
which will be AMC 5, let's say. And
Yeah.
then the week before that, AMC full length 4, week before that, AMC full length 3. And the time between that first AMC one and now we'll be able to use that to figure out if we can fit in um, blueprint or Altius exams.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Could do you suggest that I take a practice next week or maybe just take some time like reviewing and then take one when I'm ready?
yeah. So I would say uh, for like this phase one, we're not going to do practice tests until you essentially until you finish the well, okay. So the content diagnostic should will maybe at most take let's say 3 days. At most, it'll probably be a lot less. But um, after that, actually, we can start phase two.
Mhm.
So, because I was gonna say what I was saying originally was UWorld instead of the section bank, but then I realized section bank has 300 questions. UWorld has thousands, so that's not gonna work. So forget the UWorld thing that I said. After you finish your Jack Weston content diagnostic and we go over it, then I would say to start with a blueprint or an Altius test.
Okay.
And yeah, I can go over that with you along with like the concept of like a blind review and how to review things and stuff. So yeah, does that seem
Yeah, that's very fair. I think I have just about 2 months, so
mm-hmm.
work
Yep,
well.
awesome. So okay, let's see. Oh yeah, do you want to do like a passage?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think it'd be a good way to gauge for
Yep.
you. This is what my approach is.
Mm-hmm.
So you took the MCAT with the intention of going to medical school, or you just took it?
Yeah, yeah. That was the like original plan. Um, but around COVID, like I had some like life issues, so there's a lot of stuff that I had to, you know, forego.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry to hear.
so let's see. Yeah, so what type of do you want to pull up like a passage from like one of the AMC Cars stuff or something from like a Jack Weston passage?
I mean, it's up to you. Do you think Jack? I mean, Jack Weston is good. We can do a daily, or
Uh, what do you have you found any type of pattern in terms of the types of passages you find difficult, like theater or like art?
yeah, the art ones are always tough for me.
Mhm.
I was just looking over. I mean, I know the Picasso one's like the famous one that everyone
Yeah,
struggles.
yeah. That's the one that I went over in like a few videos ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so art ones I always struggle with. There's another one that I think on that was on the diagnostic that
Mhm.
was about like Manet and like I don't know if you remember, it's like the interpretation of the
Yeah. So okay,
poem.
let's have you open up some like a passage from AAMC. Um, yeah, either from well, I guess from the diagnostic tool, and then we can find one with yeah that's related to like art.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Um, you see this?
Mm-hmm.
This is my my attempt so far.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to it a little bit rusty. But
Uh-huh. So yeah, hit yeah. Um, okay, so we can kind of like uh scroll through or not scroll through, but like check out like
oh, you mean through the passage or
what's up?
you mean through this passage or like skip to
Oh yeah,
see?
just like through this, until you find something that you would say that would seem hard for you.
Okay.
You mentioned like arts, but there's also like, philosophy. There's like tons of,
Yeah,
top.
I don't know if it's a specific passage maybe that
Uh-huh.
is difficult for me.
Mhm.
Um, I think maybe that the questions that I tend to struggle with are like the reasoning beyond the text.
Yep.
Uh, but also it's very random. Sometimes I do well if it's like a if I identify it in the passage while I'm reading, then
Mhm.
it's easy to tag back to it. Um, but it's hard to say exactly which ones I struggle with.
Okay, so why don't you go through like maybe the first like 10 or 15 passages and see if you can find one that to you would be something
Okay, yeah.
be
Uh, this one I studied economics, so this one wouldn't be too difficult, it seems.
Oh yeah, be careful though, because you do not want to bring your own thoughts, opinions, knowledge, etc. into the car's passage. So be very careful.
I mean more as in the that's true. I mean more as in like the way the text is written.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like for example, some of them that use very like eloquent French words to talk about painting styles.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes throws me off. Um, this I think I remember this passage. Um, this one was a weird passage.
Uh-huh. So,
Um, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
oh yeah, I was gonna say, let's see if we can, find one that we
Yeah.
haven't done before.
Um,
A lot of economics ones here.
yeah. Um,
This is like a literary one.
yeah. Um, can do this one, I guess.
This one. Yep, we could do
Yeah.
that.
Let me check a couple more. This is what passage 10, just to come back to it if anything.
Mhm.
Um, see if I can find an art one. This one's like philosophy, right? Ethics and concealment. Um, yeah, this is like a mythology one. No art ones. Uh,
Okay, we can do the um that literature one.
yeah.
Like if you think that would be a one that you
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
a hard time
yeah.
with.
Let's do it. I think it's I struggle with the literature ones as well sometimes. So
All right, so this is what I'm gonna have you do. So you're going to read out loud, like slowly, and after like each sentence, tell me what what that sentence was saying, and put it in your own words. Um, and what we're trying to find in cars is what we are seeing in cars are arguments.
Mhm.
It's all about arguments. It's not like this is a textbook that has to be right. It's all about like because an argument is like a claim or a concept or you know something that is not a fact. So
Mhm.
you want to be aware of arguments at all times. You want to be aware of who is making the argument. And then you also want to look for if the argument has support
Okay.
and what type of support.
Okay.
So that's what I'll have you do. And sometimes really verbose sentences with numerous commas, you can kind of do it analyze the first comma, second, you could break it up into parts like that. But yeah, that's yeah, why don't you go for it?
So I'll read sentence by sentence and then try to break it down in my own words.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, the fact that in our time and the teaching of reading and writing and the teachings of the way to interpret literary works are divided between the lower and the higher levels of the educational system has perhaps blinded us to the real historical motives of canon formation and to the relations among literature, language, and the social structure. So I guess this is like the argument is the bringing up the separation. Canon, I guess, would be um, is it like of major importance? Is it like important works
Oh, which thing?
of canon formation?
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's um so wait, are you asking like what it means?
Yeah, well, I'm just confirming whether or not it's like works of major importance.
So I will not say anything about that just because I don't want to. You'll see why like in a bit, but yeah, okay, a lot of stuff is happening in this first passage. I
Okay.
mean, first sentence. Um, and yeah, what is happening? And you can kind of like go like look at the first part, the second part to make it easier.
Okay. Yeah. So wait. So the fact that in our time, the teaching of reading and writing and the teaching of the way to interpret literary works are divided between the lower and the higher levels of the educational system. So I think this what it's saying here is just pointing out that there is a separation between how literary works are interpreted or taught in between higher and lower levels of education.
Mm-hmm. So we could say, and so what I also do, and I know like you can't highlight in different colors on the MCAT, but for instruction purposes, I highlight like arguments in green. If there's like a strong support like orange. But okay, so we're saying that teaching reading and writing and teaching how to interpret literature is divided between lower levels and higher levels of the educational system. So maybe I'll say like teaching um divided like lower higher. Um, Also when I highlight, like I call it like caveman speech because I'm not highlighting the stuff in between. I'm just
Yeah.
highlighting the words in a way that it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It would have to make sense to you the way that you do it.
Mhm.
So we know that when teaching reading and writing, there's a division between people that are in the lower end and then higher end of education.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. Um, And then they say, what do they say? Yep.
And they're saying so that that has the division between lower and higher levels has blinded us from the well, what's it saying here? The motives of um, canon formation.
Hmm.
I'm struggling to remember if maybe that's religious works or important works,
Hmm.
uh, and how that relates to the relations, in literature, language, and social structure. So they're tying the division between maybe a class structure or educational system,
Hmm.
like let's say like subliminal meaning through important works or religious works. I can't figure out which one it is.
So, you're basically, yeah, about the word, but okay. So we're seeing that this division is blinding us to something, right? To the real, like, motive
Hmm.
of canon formation, and then the relations between literature, language, and social structure.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, you'll see this a lot, not a lot, but you'll see a lot of sentences that don't really won't really make that much sense, and but the more you read, it'll start to make sense. So, okay, cool. You can continue.
Okay. More important, we have yet to acknowledge or to explain fully the relation between literature and society, a relation mediated by the school as the institution of linguistic control. So they're saying more important than the blinding of the real historical motives. Um, I guess society hasn't, or maybe scholars haven't acknowledged um, or explained how literature affects society, and they're ensuing that it's mediated by the school as the institution of linguistic control, like controlling access to language.
Yeah, so prior to this sentence, they told us that in addition to the motive behind canon formation, that there's relations between language, and social structure, right? And then they're telling us after that that we can't really, or rather, it's hard for us to fully explain the relationship between literature and society. But if we were to do that, uh, the school will serve as the institution of linguistic control. Uh,
Mhm. Oh, okay.
so yeah. So I think, yeah. So what do you think they're saying so far?
So they're saying that, um, like from the beginning of what they've said, or in that sentence, you mean?
Oh, just yeah, from the beginning up to like where we are now.
They're saying that that the division between lower and higher levels has blinded us to I guess like um the motives between formation of these works, and then they're saying more important than that, this relationship between literature and society is mediated by the school of linguistic control, right? Or
Hmm. Yeah. So I would just say before that, after you mentioned the canon thing, just mention like the relations between the literature, language, and social structure. But yeah, so we have that, and then literature and technology, literature and society, and that school is the institution of the linguistic control. So whenever I read stuff like that, which is an argument, by the way, I always think to my head as if I'm talking to the author. I'm thinking, what do you mean by that? And then the author should respond by elaborating. So let's see what they say. So yeah, you can continue.
literature and language have marched through history in tandem with one another, and yesterday's literature has become today's grammar. So, I guess in this sentence, he's responding to the claim between the relationship between literature and society by saying literature and language have moved together throughout history. Yesterday's literature has become today's grammar.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, what were you gonna say?
no, I'm still trying to understand that. Um, I mean, I don't know really how to break it down more than that. Yesterday's literature, so I guess like the past is texts have become the way that we learn
So let's see, right? Um, where did we first talk about literature?
in this the first sentence, the
Yeah.
relation literature, language, and social structure.
hmm And then they tell us afterwards about this linguistic control, and then
Mhm.
they talk about literature and language, aka, linguistics, like are together, like they grow together throughout history. And yeah, like yesterday's literature has become today's grammar. All right, you can continue on.
The language of societies with written literatures has thus tended to become internally stratified according to the groups among the population that have access to the school and the amount of access each has.
Yeah.
So, I guess this is tying back to the first sentence where they're saying that there's a division between higher and lower levels of education and how much access each group has to written literatures, right?
Yeah, right. So societies that have written literature has internal stratification. What does that mean? Internal stratification.
It's like a division between groups.
hmm Yep, and it's based on people who have access to school and
Mhm.
the amount of that access.
Okay.
So, okay, so now I'm gonna write something like a short kind of like jotting down like a short, like maybe like few like sentences or a few words long, like
Mhm.
kind of, I don't want to say summary, but what the arguments are in the first paragraph. So I'll write paragraph one. You could say that, let's see.
Are you typing something here?
Oh yeah, yeah. It'll show up when I finish. But yeah, let's see. So I just wrote division, lit, and society mediated by school control of language, also real motives of canon. Um, I was like thinking if I should include that with a canon or not. Um, but mostly what we can see is that um, yeah, maybe I should have added this instead. Um, Societies, written language societies have more division.
Okay.
Do you have like a screen that's like above you,
Yeah,
like a
I do. Yeah, I know. I keep looking up and down, right?
yeah, because you have the stacked setup,
Yeah,
right?
well, no, I just have my laptop on the bottom and then a monitor above it.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought because there are setups that have like a really big monitor and then a stack on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that'd be nice. No, I just have my laptop and then I lift my monitor so it's at eye level basically.
Got it, got it. Okay, yeah. So this is what you want to do after each paragraph. Um, and obviously, like, people always ask, like, how am I going to have time to do this?
Yeah.
But if you practice it, it's going to be internalized, which means that you're going to do it already, except this time you just won't have to write something, but you'll
Yeah.
probably write like a few things. But
Yeah.
yeah, you want to kind of after each paragraph, you know, pull out pull out the arguments from it, and that's what we have so far. We have a couple of things in this first paragraph though, but yeah, we're just gonna do the best that we can.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Sure.
you continue.
Okay. Um, Since the 18th century, the social stratification of speech has corresponded roughly with the level of class and less with gender. Hence the growing number of canonical women authors over the last 2 centuries. This increase does not mean that the system for the regulation of reading and writing. Oh, sorry, I went past the. I was just reading the paragraph, but I guess it's a sorry the
Uh-huh.
parentheses, but it's another sentence.
Mhm.
So I guess they're almost bringing up a new argument about the stratification here,
Yeah.
um, providing historical reference
Uh-huh.
to the 18th century, saying the division um, of speech has corresponded or has fallen in line with the level of class rather than gender. Um, and this is or and thus there's been an increase of canonical woman authors, um, since it has less to do with gender, I would imagine. And I still don't know what canonical is, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay. So, all right. I guess you can read that parentheses part.
This increase does not mean that the system for the regulation of reading and writing no longer continues to impose particular constraints upon women who write, but that the process of canon formation is remarkable for having failed to exclude women.
What's that? What's that saying?
So they're saying that this increase does not mean that the system. So they're saying that the increase of increase or growing numbers of I guess important women authors doesn't mean that there's still constraints placed upon women um, in society. Um,
When you say that, do you mean does it mean that they don't have constraints?
yeah, they're saying that there are constraints
Yeah.
despite the increase in canonical works.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
and
Yeah.
the last bit, but the process of canon formation is remarkable for having failed to exclude women.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess they're just saying that. Um, I mean, it seems like it's a negative view on canon formation. I'm not sure.
Oh, uh, in
That's
this
why.
part, um, when you say that, tell me more.
Uh, so they're saying that there is constraints placed upon women, but so I'm struggling to understand this sentence which says, but that the process of canon formation is remarkable for having failed to exclude women.
Hmm. Yeah.
Remark Remarkable in a good way, or
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, I think what author is trying to say here is that well, the process of forming canon, it it's ridiculous that only now are women able to be these types of writers.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But all of all, I would just say this social strat of speech associated with class, less so with women. And yep, next paragraph.
Um, if the educational system has now become so complex that the historical relation between literature and grammar is easy to forget, one reason for this amnesia is that grammar is now so codified and routinized at the lower levels that it is no longer necessary to use canonical literary texts in order to teach it all.
All right, let's unpack this in parts. Like
Yeah.
first part with the first parentheses.
Mhm.
That's saying.
So I guess this first part,
Mhm.
we're saying um, that if it has become so complex that the historical relation. I'm trying to break it down in simple terms in my head. I mean, I guess he's saying that if this is the case, that the school or the educational system has become so complex, that the relationship between literature and grammar, tying back to the first paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
um, has been now essentially like forgotten, right, in lower levels.
Mm-hmm.
And then this bit here, one reason for this amnesia is that grammar is now. So I guess he's explaining now the reason for this forget or amnesia or forgetfulness is that grammar has been so ingrained into the lower levels that it's no longer taught or no longer less necessary, um,
Uh-huh.
no
So,
longer
yep.
taught with text.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right in that the first paragraph, so I added something in my map here, this note thing for paragraph one, um, that literature and grammar, come together, right? They influence one another, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So, um, but now the educational system is so complex that this and I should say the literary and grammar come like grow together throughout history.
Yeah.
Um, but this historical relation between literature and grammar is easy to forget. And one of the reasons that it's easy to forget is that grammar is now like codified or routinized at the lower levels, such that it's no longer necessary to use canon, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, um, and then another thing for cars is you want you this is like why I want you to like put things in your own words, because a lot of times wrong answer choices would use the exact same words as the passage,
Mhm.
vice versa. So being able to equate terms, like so far we're equating language
Yeah.
to linguistics,
Mhm.
and now to grammar,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so
Okay.
being able to do that. But okay, cool. So yeah, they're essentially saying that the way they teach grammar now is like a routine way that
Yeah. It's just like they're saying it's just like the regular speech,
Mhm.
that actual, I guess canon now means important texts, right? Yeah.
maybe somewhere like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, continue.
Um, but this situation has its
Oh, yeah.
uh
So what? Yeah. What? I'll when we get to the end, I'll just let you take a screenshot of the highlights so that
Mhm.
they line up. But yeah.
Okay. I'll keep it like this for now.
Mhm.
But this situation has itself been necessitated by the fact that older works of English literature are too remote linguistically to serve as models of grammar, and thus our conception of correct English has
Let,
come.
let's
Yeah,
let's do it up to the first comma.
yeah,
All right. So now a big thing I want you to always be on the lookout for are contrast words.
yeah.
So examples are like but, however, despite,
Okay,
although,
yeah,
types of words. Because what that means is that what comes before the contrast word is going to be different from what comes after.
okay.
Right. So here we're talking about, well, what are we saying in this paragraph?
So they're saying that the situation of codified grammar at lower levels being no longer necessary, um, has been made necessary, or but this situation has itself been necessitated by the fact, or I guess he's saying this has been created because of the that English literature is maybe too far from normal of in yeah, at that level. I don't know, to
When you
serve.
say, sorry, when you say English literature,
Yeah, English, like English, like texts, like literary texts. right?
So is this like Harry Potter or something?
Yeah, I think it would be like normal books that you would read in school. Um,
Let's see where so around where they said English literature, how did they describe it?
older works of English
Yes.
literature. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So yeah, so bring it together. So
So
what
I think that they're saying that because the 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 linguistics in older literature is so far from what is normal, they're no longer like models of grammar. Uh,
excellent. Good. So this is a good paragraph because it shows you that everything before that contrast word is talking about the reason that canon is not taught to people in the lower levels of education is because we are trying to get them to learn grammar,
yeah.
and we can do that better in like a routinized way.
Mhm.
Then we have our contrast word, so we know it's going to be something different.
Yeah.
Uh, Contrast word, and then it says that this situation, which is referring to the previous situation, um, has to be a thing because older works
Mhm.
of literature are too remote linguistically to serve as models for grammar.
Yeah.
So so we have two reasons why canon may not be taught to people at certain levels of education. So what should we put down for this paragraph?
Um, for the whole paragraph,
Mhm.
or for this section here.
For the whole one. I mean, you could start from the top.
Yeah. I guess we can just tag back to say, um, that the division between the higher and lower levels is due to um a lack of um I guess availability of literary texts, right?
Are you saying for this paragraph?
Oh, I thought, yeah, I mean, you were saying to summarize the paragraph or
Yep.
just the section here?
Hmm. Yeah. So if you can kind of look like see like what I highlight, it can kind of help as well. So like grammar, codified, lower levels,
Mhm.
no canon, right?
Yes. So I guess, and then this last bit, um, that the complexity of the educational system is due to the forgetting that, or I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way to
Wait,
uh
what is the thing about
this this bit here.
complexity? Oh, okay, okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just summarizing the green in the lower levels, grammar has become codified, um, and it's no longer necessary to use important works to teach grammar or literature, and this is because it is no longer available or it's not widely available.
Yeah, so um, I don't think it's the available part,
Mhm.
right? So we know that. So this paragraph is starting off. So before this, we know that there's a historical relation between language and literature that have always been together.
Mhm.
Um, but today they're kind of separated.
Yeah.
And today, why is it that they're separated? Well, one of the reasons, so you see how it says, okay, don't read that yet. I
Yeah.
was going to, I forgot that I had it there, so because I was going to draw something, but basically, where was I going to draw? Okay.
It's over here, so I'm not looking at that over.
So the historical relation, right, is
Yeah.
forgotten. And one reason for it, right, is oh, and I should also say every time they give you like one reason, three reasons, you want to be aware of like what's the first, what's the second. So
Yeah.
okay, like we're talking about okay, why this throughout history, grammar and literature went hand in hand. That's
Yeah.
not the case anymore. Why is that? Well, one reason is that grammar is so codified, you know, because what I'm imagining is like them, a teacher writing down like, okay, this is there, this is how you spell this, and that type of stuff. Like that's how they teach grammar. So at the lower levels, at least. So it's not necessary to use canon to teach them, right? So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is some of these older works are speaking in like old English or something like that. And that's like you can't teach anyone grammar with that.
Yeah.
You have two reasons why, this uh historical relationship is broken.
Okay.
So in the map I put down for paragraph 3, I put an arrow to the above,
Mhm.
and I'm just saying why. So I'm really saying, okay, why is that the case?
Yeah.
Mentioned above.
Mhm.
Uh, And then I wrote grammar codified, so no use for canon, as well as old canon to remote linguistically. Um, but yeah, what I'm keeping in my head, like so far is just that historical relationship of grammar and lit suddenly not thing anymore.
Yeah.
By so okay, awesome. All right, you can. Oh wait, sorry. That part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This last bit. Well, I guess they're just saying, right, the conception of correct English has come
Yeah.
to,
So they're telling, yeah, so read that part.
yeah, our conception of thus our conception of correct English has come to be based on the literary prose of 18th and 19th centuries rather than the works of the Middle Ages or the Renaissance.
Ah, okay, okay, yeah. I almost missed this. Because so what is this last sentence telling us?
Um, they're just saying that because of the old works of literature are too remote linguistically, correct English is now based on I guess later literary prose rather than older texts of Middle Ages or the Renaissance.
Yep. So I'm adding it. Today's prose is 18th to 19th century, not medieval.
Yeah,
So there you go. Okay, cool.
awesome. So next paragraph.
Mhm.
One consequence of this circumstance is that over the last 100 years, the major canonical works have defined the syllabus at the higher levels of the system, while at the lower levels, the canon itself has been gradually replaced by a range of children's and adolescents' works, useful for disseminating basic literacy based on the relative verbal simplicity.
There's
Um,
this is like the longest sentence ever.
it's
I
a
can't.
paragraph, basically.
Yeah, it's huh. Okay. So yeah, let's break it up into parts.
Mhm.
Um, we have a number, so we want to pay attention to that. But yeah, why don't you explain to me what they're saying in parts, like up to the first comma and then up to the next one, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the consequence of the circumstance that they're referring to is the consequence of the how grammar is codified and routinized at lower levels
Hmm.
uh, over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that's pretty much what it's saying there. And then the major canonical works have so the important works, the canonical works have determined the um, the way that a higher level is English or literature is taught,
Mhm.
while at lower levels, the canon has been replaced for, I guess, more routinized, simple works of English, easier to understand, I guess, um, to teach basic grammar.
Okay. So um, so at the higher end or higher levels, they still read canon.
Mhm.
Lower levels, they read these children's and adolescent works, right? For the purpose of achieving basic literacy, right?
Yeah.
So, um, and also in the first sentence here, one consequence of this circumstance, that could be, I mean, usually it would just be whatever came right before,
Yeah.
but sometimes it could be not what comes immediately before. So what comes immediately before is just that canon is too remote linguistically, and what's before that is that grammar is codified. We don't need they don't use canon anymore.
Mhm.
But I think what they mean by this circumstance is how canon is not used anymore for certain levels, I
Okay.
believe. Uh,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, so over here we're talking about yeah, so sorry, what are we talking about in this paragraph?
So I guess here they're just saying that the division between grammar is based or is they're explaining it, right? So in the higher levels, canons are taught as like the way of learning, and at the lower levels, the canon is replaced for more simple forms of grammar to just achieve basic literacy or verbal simplicity.
Yep, yep, yep. And we have some examples here, right?
Mhm.
So we have so I wrote error to the above is because higher levels still use canon, but the lower ones are replaced by children's and adolescents by basic literacy, and the examples are the O. Henry and stuff like that. So what I usually do for that is I highlight in orange. So
Okay.
that's like the so that's an example of evidence and a strong uh, type of support. Because
Okay.
so far we have not really talked about the author has not really given us any real life examples. So
Mhm.
this is like the first one. So yeah, you can continue.
Um, when students, not everyone, of course, come to study the major canonical works at the secondary or university levels of the system, they're able to acquire sophistication about a language presumably greater than the simple literacy or standard English of the lower levels. So I guess here they're just saying um, when students go to higher levels of education, um, they're studying the canons um, and acquire whether it's higher education, higher level. So they're acquiring better literacy or better grammar than the lower levels would be.
When you say, are you saying acquiring or requiring?
Acquiring.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me again what they're acquiring.
Um, higher level understanding of grammar or English.
Yeah, perfect. So we could see that the ones who study the canon, they have a language ability that's greater than the simple
Mhm.
literacy that they teach at the lower levels.
Mhm.
I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
that's fine. No worries.
Wow, we just got back at the same exact time.
Um,
Okay, so where were we?
just this second to last paragraph, it seems.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just talking about, I think we were saying that the students who go to get more education become more acquainted with the canons, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're up to right after lower levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Go.
so they learn a literary style of speaking and writing, which is more than merely correct, more than merely an accurate reproduction of such prose paradigms as are still used in composition courses.
All right, what are they telling us here?
Um, they learn. So they're saying that the through the studying of canons, um, they're learning a, I guess, a more accurate style of English. Um, I'm struggling to break down the second part. More than merely an accurate reproduction of such prose paradigms as are still used in composition courses. Um, so I think it's just like more um,
Mhm.
than the um, I guess, to simplify it, what the lower levels are learning in a composition course, right?
So that lower level or simple literacy is about, you know, if it's correct or not,
Yeah,
like grammatically speaking. But the higher education levels that do get taught canon achieve achieve a greater level of literacy that's more literary rather than simple.
yeah,
So that's what they gain, right? Okay,
yeah.
continue.
Um, this more sophisticated linguistic facility is signaled in many ways. For example, by the capacity to recognize quotations from canonical literature, recognition that subtly broadcasts an advanced level of educational acquisition.
Mhm.
So they just learn um, to be able to recognize quotations from important texts that shows that they're well acquainted with English language.
Mhm. So what can we put for this one?
Um, we, I guess, we can say students at higher level um, learn literary style beyond that of composition. Um, I guess they're able to recognize sophisticated uh, language.
So I wrote higher levels, canon, sophisticated literacy, i.e., quotes from canon. So okay, take a screenshot of like the highlights here, like basically the passage. All right, and yeah, now you can scroll down.
Let me just open up. I think I did the like copy paste. There we go. Yeah, I'll just put it into a Word document so I don't lose it. Okay, we're here, right? Yeah. Whatever else an individual might do with real knowledge conveyed by the school, this linguistic facility is an example of what the school does socially for the individual. By the real knowledge conveyed by the school. Whatever else an individual might do with the real knowledge conveyed by the school, this linguistic facility is an example of what the school does socially for the individual. I guess um, what they're saying here, whatever the students may do with what they've learned from these courses, um, is an example of how the uh, education affects their like stratification or social level, right?
So I think they're bringing us back to that school institution thing. So whatever else an individual might do with the real knowledge conveyed by the school, linguistic facility, or this linguistic facility, is an example of what the school can do for the individual.
Yeah,
So linguistic facility, what the school does, for
yeah,
the individual.
yeah,
And now, as always, the school reproduces the stratified structure. So school, stratified structure of, I guess, social order. And
Mhm.
then within this institutional structure, the literary curriculum performs this function by producing distinctive forms of linguistic knowledge. Okay. What can
yeah.
you say here?
Um, so they're saying that with what is learned at the higher levels, the school is able to reproduce a uh, stratified structure in of social society, and um, and within this institutional structure, the sorry, I'm sure I just struggle to break it down into simple terms.
Mm-hmm.
That the curriculum taught at these schools functions by creating different forms of linguistic knowledge.
So this, so we're kind of bringing, so when we mentioned the school in the first paragraph, we're kind of bringing that back by showing us that the school can be good for you by giving you this linguistic facility, but it still, the school itself still reproduces that stratified structure and social order. And so that's pretty much it. So I put school gives linguistic facility for the individual, but still perpetuates stratified um, structure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about what a main idea can be.
Okay. I think that the main idea here is that um, they're tying to how English or language can create a division between higher and lower levels,
Okay.
and that higher level can be achieved through additional education to become more acquainted with canons, which are the ideal form of learning English
Mm-hmm.
uh, for both grammar skills and societal advantages.
Okay. So so main idea will be any argument that's mentioned in more than one paragraph.
Mhm.
So paragraph one, we talk about division mediated by division between literature and society. Um,
It's Word document.
Mostly lit and grammar come together. Um, and then we talk about social stratification of speech. And then we talk about lower levels, higher levels, about the use of using canon to teach grammar. Um, and so, okay, if we bring this all together, I would probably say, um, I just wrote historical relation between grammar slash lit is no longer there due to social stratification. So those are just kind of some of the things that I saw that I feel like they might uh, ask about. So, okay. So let's see. Okay, so let's try this question out.
Yeah. Um, okay, the assertion that the linguistic goals of the lower levels of education differ from those of the higher levels is supported by the author's reference to um, I think it would be, well, if we tie back to this bit here, where they talk about this is where they talk about the difference between the levels, right? Uh,
Hmm.
could be books written for
So
maybe
when we go to the questions,
yeah.
what we want to do is rephrase the question in your own words because usually people rush through and then they kind of just keep looking back and forth at the passage. So for that, I actually even do this. Like I just block it out entirely.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So what is the yeah? So what is this question asking for?
So they're asking the authors when he talks about um, the difference between the goals of lower levels of education from higher ones. What does he use to support that?
Okay, so what is that argument? Like, what's tell me about like that are so like there's an argument here, right? Oh, and
Yeah.
an assertion is just another word for argument, but yeah, the claim or the argument that the linguistic goals of the lower levels differ from that in the higher levels. Would you say that that's the case here? Like that they are have different goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a paragraph that talked about how it's become codified to just um, achieve basic literacy, right? Or like in routine, and he after that ties to the importance of canons in for the higher levels, right?
Yep.
So like, it's a higher, and then the other one is just basic literacy.
Yep, yep. Good. So doing this helps us figure like come up with an answer ourselves, which then when we go through the choices could help us eliminate choices because we know what we're looking for. Um, otherwise it could be too easy to be susceptible. You could be susceptible to the wrong answer choices otherwise. But yeah, let's go through these. And for the choices, also, I want you to tell me like start from A and then tell me like if it's wrong, why it's wrong, and I'll kind of help you with some terms as well. But
Okay.
yeah, what would you say about?
Okay. So the first one, books written for children and adolescents. Um,
Oh, sorry, one last thing. So what I just talked about is the assertion in this question stem, but the question stem is really asking, is this argument supported?
yeah.
If so, so that's why I mentioned like it's always important to be aware of the argument, who's saying it, and if there's any support for it. So they're asking, if there's support for this.
Yeah. Um,
Yep.
there is support, and I guess the first one is saying that the support is books, the reference to books written for children and adolescents, um, which I guess would be um, the stories of O. Henry, right? The short stories. Um, I think that this I don't really think it ties back to the linguistic goals specifically.
Talking about?
Sorry,
Oh, which choice?
the first one. Sorry.
Oh, so you're saying that you don't think that it's
I mean, I wouldn't say that I would have to look through the other ones, but um, I mean, it does talk about the maybe the separation between high and lower levels. Uh,
uh-huh.
maybe not the linguistic goals of the education. Maybe. I mean, I'm 50-50 on it.
Okay, okay. So let's see. Um, what you're saying something about like oh Henry.
Mhm.
Tell me more about what you're saying.
that part of the text or the passage was talking about the division between higher and lower levels. So I thought maybe that'd be a good way to support the division between these educations.
So would that make a good choice or a bad choice?
Um, it would make it a good choice.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's check out the other choices. So yeah, tell me about B.
Um, the number of canonical women authors. This one, I mean, it doesn't talk about the division between lower and higher levels.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So when they talked about the division of lower and higher levels, they said that it was due to like class.
yeah, not gender.
Yeah. So B would be you could eliminate that with by saying contradiction.
Yeah.
All right, and then C.
The language of societies with written literatures. Um, I thought maybe this would be a better one to support it because it could it I guess encompasses both sides, the O. Henry poems and the Catcher in the Rye, the J.D. Salinger,
Uh-huh.
right?
What
Uh,
about that though?
I mean, language decides with written literatures. Um, Maybe I don't know. It doesn't really tag back to the linguistic goals
Mm-hmm.
levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we did say something in the first paragraph about how um how societies that have written language have more division.
Mhm.
So, but this choice, language of societies with written language literatures, is not really answering what that question is, right? So we could say like out of scope for that.
Yeah, Aristotle.
And what about D?
Works of Middle Ages and the Renaissance would also be out of scope. That is in the part before that talks about um, that higher levels would, I guess, focus that. I mean, I think it's a too out of scope to try to
Mhm.
incorporate it.
Yep. Good. So what's your answer?
Right?
Good.
Should I put a review answer?
Yeah, you could do that.
Nice. Should we read through it or just yeah?
Oh no, you don't have to read through it. I mean, you can on your
I,
own.
I can read it if necessary.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So this is why I didn't didn't want to answer your question.
I guess yeah, I'd probably go with C if
Yeah.
it's on
Good. Yeah.
level.
There's like Western canon, which is like Plato,
Mhm.
Like all the super important stuff.
Yeah. So list of influential literary texts. Yeah,
Mhm.
nice. Um, so if the kind of literature taught in the U.S. public schools is determined by the need for basic literacy instruction, which of the following inferences is possible?
Okay. Right before anything, what are they asking?
So um, if the curriculum was based on just learning basic literacy, um, which of the following inferences could be made about that, right?
Yeah, so they're saying like the goal is basic literacy. So how would that affect the kind of literature that's taught to the US
Yeah.
public? Okay.
Okay. So the first one, a change in the literary quality of books in the school libraries indicates a change in the literacy level of the population. Uh, I like the sound of that. I think it makes sense if they're saying that the literature that's taught or I guess available is determined. Wait, yeah, I mean, I think one ties. I'm struggling to understand the question entirely, how it ties to that. So they're saying if the quality of literary quality of the books has changed, that indicates a change in the literacy level of population.
Mhm.
I mean, my thought is that does tie in with what they're saying
Mhm.
uh, in the passage and the question.
Yep.
Um, then so I guess it would be either C or D.
Okay.
Then for two, students who read older literature are more literate than are students who read modern literature. Um, I guess in the context of the passage, yes.
Let's think about when they mentioned older literature.
Yeah, they talked about older English literature um, as like as the canons that higher levels of education use, right?
Well, so do you remember? So when they mentioned the medieval thing, tell me
Oh,
the yeah.
we're talking about that the grammar, the way that English was written in older texts is almost beyond scope of the practical use of it.
Yeah, so Roman numeral 2 says people or students who read old literature are more literate than students who read modern literature. But we know from the passage that old literature, like, is going to be far away linguistically.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be true that just because they read older literature that they're more literate.
Okay.
So we can knock out Roman numeral 2, and I'm sure you can figure out which is the right answer here, but
Process of elimination.
3, yeah.
So teachers give more consideration to vocabulary level than to literary merit in selecting books for English classes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that makes sense if what the question is asking for
Yep.
basic see,
Yep.
just like tying, and also the reason why we eliminated two
Mhm.
was the practicality of basic literacy.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd go with D.
All right. Good.
Next.
So we're gonna have to wrap up just because I have a student
Yeah.
in like 15 minutes. But I would say to continue this passage and try not to look at the at that, but if you want to look at something, you look at this thing on the right, the map.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Screenshot.
you can try, test your answers or test or score it to see which ones you got right and wrong.
Yeah.
And then moving forward from what you screenshotted, like let's see if you can kind of practice doing like this type of thing. And let's see if that would make like, would give you like uh better results.
Okay. Perfect.
So, okay, when would you like to meet next?